Welcome to the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. On today's show, we're going to be talking about your why, focusing on your why instead of chasing money. Because in the end, if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not big enough. See you on the inside. There we go. Welcome to the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. And if you didn't catch the intro, we're going to be talking about your why, focusing on your why and why that's right, pun, why that's so important. And really, in addition to just focusing on your why, it's really to distract you and pull you away from just focusing on money. Because so many of us, right, in this entrepreneurial journey, we chase the almighty dollar. It's typically something that kind of brings us into the business a little bit. I mean, ultimately we have this big why. We're going to be talking about that today and how that kind of has maybe even evolved over time. But when we still get intrigued, we want more time. We want to go on, more vacations, maybe have a little better life, whatever it may be, right? Just that lifestyle in general, or just freedom. We talk about freedom being one of the big things, but that does require money. And so we're going to be talking about kind of the bridging the gap between those two things. So welcome to today's show. You see, we have a missing individual today. Tina, I hope you're able to tune in from bed. And I hope Paco is in town rubbing those feet and nursing you back to health. So you are missed. Looking forward to catching up with you really soon. But let's kind of just break it down, right? So as I'm sitting here right now, getting my tea ready, because I would like to. I've been on the phone pretty much nonstop for the last couple hours, so I'm gonna have a little tea while Christina and Star kind of bring you into this whole, why. What is your why? Anyways, we hear about that all the time in business.
Well, I think that when we first get into business, like let's take it back to the beginning. And I want to ask both of you guys this question because when you first started becoming an entrepreneur, because we all had jobs before we became entrepreneurs, what was it that motivated you in the very, 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 very beginning to switch into entrepreneurship? Because we all know that it's more work, it's more responsibility, it's more time, especially in the beginning, right? And I know for myself, I was definitely motivated by money. I was absolutely motivated by money because I was working in a salon. My max that year, like I couldn't out earn $36,000. I was bartending on the weekends because I couldn't pay my rent on the $36,000 a year and eat at the same time, right? So I knew that I had to do something different, and very quickly realized when I started working for myself that I could make 3x, 4x the money in less time because I wasn't paying, or I wasn't having to pay out through other things, and I wasn't, having commission deducted, or I wasn't working for somebody else. I was like, now this was my business. And I remember that feeling of, wow, this is so much better. However, as time went on, things started to shift. So I want to know what you guys, like when you first got into business for yourself, what was that one motivator for you? Because for me, it was absolutely money at the time.
Yeah. Go ahead, Star. I'll let you go first.
So my story is a little bit different, and I've shared my story in the past with you guys here before, but when I started my business, I had my baby in that entire first year. And I started discussing it with my husband before I even had him as well. But once I had him, that year was like, okay, this is the last year that I'm working in corporate, and I created an exit strategy. But I'm going to take it back to my childhood. So when I was in high school, I actually went to a business high school for ninth grade. I didn't get to stay because my sister didn't get in the next year. So I just had a passion for business. And even going to college, it was either, okay, I'm going to law school or I'm going to get a business degree. And I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. What did that mean to me? Being an entrepreneur meant that I was going to have financial freedom and no longer live in poverty as I had grown up into. So that was like my starting point for my why.
Interesting. It's funny because what a perfect segue. Both of your initial whys definitely just coincide with my own story. Star, bringing it back to the very beginning at a very early age. Not only did I know and was I preparing myself to be an entrepreneur, with surrounding myself with mentors before I'd even graduated high school, but and I'll talk about that more in a moment. But I actually was one. So when I graduated high school, went off into the military. I was in a dorm, was typical, working on those military wages. Um, I don't know. Back then, it was probably about $22,000 a year, right? And full time fighting for your country. But anyway, that's besides the whole point. And so I wanted more. It was like, okay, what can I do with my time? Other than partying, because that was still a big part of my life back then. So it was like, what can I do to like really still kind of get this thing off the ground? And so my first business, interesting enough, I was building computers, and I'm talking like, I know I'm going to date myself here, but back to like the 385, 40, like those old platforms. But I was building them custom back then because number one, you actually could start to build and customize your own computer, but computers were costing people $5,000, $6,000. And so I knew that if I could take my skill set back then and build something maybe for half the price, then I was in business. And I was doing that. So I had probably built about 11 computers right out of my dorm room for the other people that were in the military at the time. We were buying these custom computers. And so life was booming, right? Now, obviously that changed quickly, and technology and time caught up, as we talk about all the time. Those prices came down and I was no longer in that business, but it afforded me some other little luxuries during that time. And so, and you know what? They were tangible things. So kind of going back to what you said, Christina, it was money. It was money driven at the time. And I didn't have, the family. I didn't have the wife and the kids or anything else at that time. And so it was just like, I just wanted more. But what I will say is that going back to kind of my mentorship, my grandfather, rest in peace. He is an amazing man that really became very successful throughout his life and his career. But he was exposing me, as a kid that was in eighth, ninth grade, already to like looking in the newspaper, understanding what the stock market was all about, understanding business and commerce and how it all works, and how the economy actually works globally. And so I dove into those things. I was reading books back then, and that kind of started that journey. I just knew that I wanted more. Even when I was working in corporate America, Christina, right? I knew that all of it was just a stepping stone towards eventually having my own business and making a larger impact. And that's exactly what I did.
You know what's so interesting? Both of you guys knew you were going to be entrepreneurs. I didn't really understand what that meant because I came from a family that worked 9 to 5. So I didn't even think to go to university for business. I just knew that I had to go to university because that was the next step. That's what I was made to feel like I had to do. And so I went to school for music because that's the only thing that I loved at the time. I loved singing. And I was like, this is the only thing that I guess I'll be a music teacher, like, because all my friends are being teachers. And I was like, maybe this is the thing that I'm going to do. And very quickly realized that just didn't light my soul on fire. And so it's really interesting to me that you guys always had that. And I mean, I was selling stuff when I was 6. Like I was totally an entrepreneur, but I just didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how that was going to unfold. Yeah. And so it's really interesting to me that you guys knew from the get-go, like, how am I going to figure this out? I'm going to be a problem solver. What's next? And so something that you said, Robert, and Star, that really hits home for me is that, Robert, you said, I didn't have kids at the time. And Star's like, I changed when I was pregnant. I changed And so there's an evolution that happens, an evolution in business that happens, because guess what? You change. Like over time, you grow and you change, and your life changes in different chapters. Right. And I think that what's really interesting about entrepreneurship is that often entrepreneurs get stuck in a box and continue to do the same thing over and over and over again for years, because they're like, I started with a tire shop, or I started with a clothing store, so I'm just going to continue down that line. But when you know why you do something, and really, me wanting more money was me wanting freedom. Me
That's
wanting
it.
more, right? And I didn't
Yes.
realize that that was the base of it all. And so when I was pregnant, I was 7 months pregnant. I had a really bad shoulder injury. I ended up being a hairstylist after going to school for music because I was like, oh, wait a second. I don't want to work till 2 a.m. all the time. I don't want to travel all the time. I don't want to do what it takes in this music industry that is completely toxic. I don't want to be in that anymore. Like, I want to do something different. So I became a hairstylist because I was like, I want to be a mom.
Yeah.
Right? I can make my own schedule. I can do my own things. And so in that process, I realized, what was going to be the most important thing to me was family. And I find that is a common thread between all entrepreneurs, that we really have a different sense of family and what we're willing to do for them. And so in that process, I went from being a hairstylist to working for myself. And then I'm like, wait a second. If I have to work every single weekend doing weddings, I have to work till 9 p.m. because people are off work at 6, right? And that's when they can get their hair done. I'm going to miss out on singing her to sleep at night. I'm going to miss out on going camping and going to the beach and going to birthdays and barbecues. I'm going to miss out on being the mom that I want to be. And I was like, that doesn't work. So what do we have to do next? And that's when I got into online marketing, right? So one of the things that is so important about understanding your why is that you will evolve over time. And a lot of the times you have to reinvent yourself over and over and over again to be able to fulfill your purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry about that. When I pulled that up, it was really in context to talk about it next. And I realized it covered half your beautiful face. So, but I will pull it up again just for reference for those that didn't see it. And but you're absolutely right, Christina. But you know what? Dave actually kind of piggybacks on what you said. He's kind of echoing the fact that even though you didn't know what the word was, right? You weren't exposed to, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. You wanted more and you wanted freedom and some of these things that gave you that. And quite frankly, like being a parent, being a mom, being a father also that stays home and does some of these things, but typically it is the mom. It is some of these things, like meaning now that you have this responsibility, you still maybe want to contribute or you want to move your career forward or do something, but you want that flexibility because you don't have the ability now to just say, well, I mean, you do with daycare and everything else, but to be able to juggle both, right? To be able to spend time with your kids, but then also do something that pushes your career and some of your goals forward. So I love that. And Dave, thank you for contributing. Which, by the way, I don't know, do either one of you know Dave Doyle?
Yeah, so Dave Doyle, let me tell you, Dave
Yeah.
Doyle was the guy that accepted my TED Talk in Grand Prairie.
Oh,
And
all right.
he ran the TED Talk there. And then after COVID, COVID hit and we had to cancel it. And then there was just a series of events and, things happened. And so we never got to do that. But Dave's going on a road trip. And so I'm excited to see him in Mexico at some point.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, the reason why I asked is, so Dave, I don't know if we're related anyway, but half of my family is Doyle. So interesting. We'll have to see if there's a connection there later on down the road. So anyways, all right. Besides that, sorry, I got off on a little tangent, but interesting to always see maybe a potential family member trip across.
One cousin.
Yeah, absolutely. But so that's basically what it is. Most of us, not all of us, some of us, it takes a real pain point to bring us to that level where we're like, I'm out of here, right? Like, F this, I'm out of here. Yeah. I'm hanging up my apron or whatever it is, and I'm going to move forward with something else in life. But most of us kind of still have that deep down, just there's a void. And I know with all of us being coaches, we hear this constantly, especially for people that are new moving into the space, right? It's just like, I don't know, I just don't feel fulfilled. It's not really so much about money, even though that's intriguing. For some people, it's like, I'm not happy. And we'll talk a lot about happiness as well. I'd like to really expand on that because why and happiness, I mean, they absolutely go hand in hand.
And that's why we always talk about people giving up and putting in things that are happening right now. They're like, oh, I'm walking away. My business is not working out. But a lot of them are not serving from their why perspective. If you are operating out of, why you're doing this or, why you feel fulfilled, what makes you actually happy to do the work that you do, you're not just going to quit because money isn't coming in or you're not getting the X number of clients that you think you should be getting. So you really want to go back to your purpose and your why so that you can stay committed to that. And I also think that your why can change over time. I know for me, like, yes, my purpose was like, I have this baby and I don't want to leave him in childcare and all of that. I want to get out of poverty, but now it's like a little bit deeper, right? I want to help other women to be able to have financial freedom because of what I watched maybe my mom endured. And I just took it back to that today. I watched her struggling and I didn't want that for myself, but also I don't want that for other women. So that's my current why. And then I also have other work that I want to do in the future that maybe I don't have time because of the kids. And as they get older, I'll probably start tapping into those things.
Yeah. See, I love that. You're right. It is. Your why, quite frankly, should be a story that continues to evolve, right? Over time.
Yeah.
And Christina, yours, I mean, like if I just, just to kind of piggyback on that for those that haven't been on any of the other shows, you had a big evolution, like where you lived and where you decided to, move to an entirely new country and experience new things and hardships along the way too, right? To kind of reach those goals.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what's funny? So we talk about happiness and the irony of this, like everything is serendipitous, right? So Dave did a TED talk and it's called The Key to Happiness. So go watch that TED talk because he talks about how he discovered the key to happiness, right? As an entrepreneur. And that's that's what's kept him going anyways. It's really cool. But you know what I find too is that when we have this deep sense of being unfulfilled, how many of us have gone through these times in our lives, whether, we've been at home with our kids, we've been in a job that we're not being challenged at or whatever. And we go through this time of feeling very unfulfilled. Like I'm okay, but I'm not really happy, right? Like there's not really a lot of joy in my life. And I want to challenge you to think about this a little bit because this is kind of what got us to Mexico. This is what helped us evolve, is that when you're feeling that way, it's because you've grown. You actually have become a different version of yourself, but you're settling for where you were before. And so you're not being fulfilled because you're not moving forward and you're not stepping into who you've actually become, right? And so there was all these conversations with Ryan and I when we were living up in Canada, and we had this beautiful 10-acre hobby farm. But over COVID, like it was very, very isolating. I learned a lot about myself because I thought, man, I just love to go live out on the farm, amongst the trees, and it's so peaceful and quiet. And I learned about myself that I am actually a lot more extroverted than I really thought. And I'm like, I can't be not around people. Like I'm not okay when I'm not around people. I need to talk to people and engage and interact. And like, that's what brings me energy. Whereas my husband could go chop wood for 5 hours and he'd be fulfilled. Like he's okay being in the middle of the woods and doing his own thing. And so we learned a lot about each other in that process. And he took on raising our daughter and was at home with us and developing the property. And I just realized, we can continue to live like this, but there are some things going on in Canada that we're not really in alignment with. We don't believe in. We're not being fulfilled in our core values. And like, I wanted to do everything I could to protect my family. I want to do everything I could to protect my daughter. She's very, very young. At the time we left, she was 5. And I know that we only get 7 or 8 years to instill these values and morals into our kids. And I take that really seriously. Like I'm really conscious when I'm parenting her and the big conversations that we have. And I was like, I don't think that I'm in an environment where I want her to be influenced by other people in society or even by the school programs here. Like, I just think that we could turn this into something better. Like, really, we could turn this into something better. And like, why don't we go on an adventure? I've always wanted to live abroad. As a little girl, I dreamed of it. I didn't know how that would happen. I came from a really small town. I had no idea, but I was like, I've always dreamed of like living in different places and traveling with my family and going on safaris and going to Antarctica and going to see the Northern Lights. And like, I would love to have that life experience with my family. I think that's what I'm here for. And so how do I facilitate that? And now we have this opportunity to pick up and go because I worked online. My husband's like, we can stay or we can go, but like, where are we going to feel better? And so that move started as a 3 to 6 month kind of test and to get a balcony view of our lives, to take a break. Because I also think entrepreneurs don't take breaks long enough to sit and think about what they want to do next because they're too busy moving forward.
Wow, that is absolutely true.
You want to unpack that one?
I'm just like you just like kind of dropped it there, and I'm sitting here like thinking, that is true. We do, and by the way, that's why it's perfect that we're having this conversation right now. We always talk, by the way, for those that are tuning in, before the show, after the show, in between, about just how busy we are. And that's because we take a lot of things upon ourselves. Ultimately, the goal is still the same. Or I should say, the goal is still the same. However, sometimes the in-between, right, to get there, it continues to evolve and change. But you're right. We tend to be so busy that it's even easy for us to get lost in the mix and forget what our ultimate why is. Like, why are we doing this in the end? And as a matter of fact, psychologically, it's even true that when you fall into a rut or you feel like things just aren't progressing or you're not experiencing that breakthrough, you have to come back and revisit your why. Like, why are you doing all this? Why, from the very beginning, why did you make this decision? And just in doing that, taking that small moment really helps you kind of refocus and quite frankly, maybe tweak and pivot along the way so that you can actually, obtain and point back. I call it true north to what your why is.
And oftentimes we see some entrepreneurs, I think we've all been guilty of this at some point, where we're working too much in the business. We're working too hard. So we're not even spending that time. We did this for our family, but now we're not spending time with the family. We're
Yeah.
working long days and long nights. So really revisiting that is going to be important as well, because okay, should I adjust my schedule? Do I need to have a specific CEO day off where I am just like going out with the kids and the hubby, or creating a date night once a week for you and your spouse? These are things that you can be doing as well. So you also want to avoid the trap of like, yeah, we are in entrepreneurship, we are in this journey, but what is the real why as to why we're doing this? It's not so that we can be inundated with stress and work more than our 9 to 5s, right?
You know, but sometimes it's interesting that you say that, Star, because right when you are just a true like through and through entrepreneur, it's in your blood. We talk about that all the time, and we all become very competitive, and we push ourselves to these limits that kind of keep us in that zone. But you're right, we absolutely need to step back sometimes. And what I like about what you just stated is, in that particular case, let's say your why is spending more time with your family, is realizing that if that is truly your why, then making the time to carve out little pieces, little segments, little threads that kind of lead you to that why, and spend that time along the way, along the journey, right? Because too many people, like if you think about the old methodology of, you work really hard, you go to school, you get a great job that you stay at for 30 plus years, and then you retire. Like, those days have been way past, right? Those are way behind us. But that's what that programming taught us back then, was that your why was to get to the end of the journey and then live life. But we're also, you have to remind yourself, you've got to live it along the way.
Yeah, there's almost like 2 stages of business and entrepreneurship. And the first stage is like this hustle, like, oh my God, I've got to make this work because I've got nobody else doing this and it's only me, right? And so you go, 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 go. And this is why so many entrepreneurs burn the heck out and then they quit. And then they're like, this is too hard. I wasn't meant for this. No, no, no. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to challenge you beyond what you think you can do. That's how we grow, right? But then the second phase of that, I like to call adoption. It's just like this stage where you click and you're like, wait a second. I know who I am. I know my purpose. I know how I'm meant to help. And I know why I'm doing what I do. So I'm only going to make decisions based on alignment of that. And guess what? My whole life is going to revolve around that, but it's going to work together as opposed to working against each other, right? Because when you're hustling in that first stage, you're also giving up family time. You're giving up the things that you're truly, because we always hear people say about your why, like, don't make your why your excuse, because say, we'll do it for our family. And then, well, I'm never seeing my family, right? Yeah. And so you get to the second stage and you're like, actually, I'm going to chill out. I'm going to enjoy this. I know what I'm meant to do. I know where I'm going. I understand that this is going to evolve and that businesses are going to come and go and that there's going to be different chapters. So I'm going to actually enjoy the journey. Like, if you can actually get to that point in entrepreneurship, and that's part of why Mexico needed to happen. One of the big aha moments I had was reading Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. And actually I listened to it because I wanted to hear him read it. Okay. And so I listened to it, and he talks about these times in his life where he took a month off, or he took 2 years off with his kids. Like, and I'm like, if this big, huge movie star who's making millions and millions of dollars can take 2 years off to be with his kids, why the hell can't I? Like, I deserve that too, right? Like, I deserve that time. And so sometimes, and this is probably, I would say this is one of the hardest things as an entrepreneur, because we are so driven. We always want more. We always want better. We always want to improve. The hardest thing to do is taking that balcony view of your life and then taking a step back and saying, what is actually in alignment with what I want? And when we did that, we're like, actually, we don't want to work as much and miss each other. We
Yes.
want to spend more
Yes.
time together. We want to spend time at the beach. And the money thing doesn't become as important to you anymore. You're like, I've got this money coming in. This is a chapter of my life. My kids are young. In 10 years, my daughter's probably going to be off doing other things. And I'm going to have all this time and be depressed that she doesn't want to hang out with me. So I might as well build big business then. But right now, I'm going to enjoy the part of life that I'm supposed to enjoy. I'm going to enjoy being a mom and a wife, a young mom and wife with energy, and so that we can travel and do the things that we love. And that doesn't take away from our drive to build business. That's part of it. And so if you can figure out how to live in that sweet spot of like, I'm going to move forward, but I'm also going to enjoy my, my weekends and the time off, then it really does make a huge difference in your sustainability long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Star, you want to expand on that as far as,
Yeah.
when we talk about just the why, and I know you'll get into the detail of this. I don't want people to just think as they're creating, because some people may not even know what their why is. And
Yes.
so, but to just make it so vague, like, my why is my family. As you said, Christina, you really need to get deeper. Like, so what does that mean to you? Why is your family your why? And when you start to peel back those layers, you start to see that, well, it's not just spending more time with them. You go even deeper. Like when I'm laying on my deathbed, I want my children to wrap their arms around me and say, thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for all that you've done. Like that makes me cry, right? That makes me cry. Saying my why is my family doesn't really bring the tears, right, to surface. And so bring it like to that level that it's such an emotional state that it actually absolutely compels you forward. And Star, I know you're doing that now.
Yeah, so I love that Christina shared her journey with her spouse. And, this show is about being real, raw, and authentic. And I feel like me and my husband are definitely at different places in our lives and entrepreneurship and business. We've both been guilty of being a workaholic.
Yeah.
Like I said, sometimes I would stay up till 2 a.m. whenever I start a new business project. And I'm fine with that, but I don't want to live in that space. So we're at a point where it's like we haven't had that discussion of, okay, we need to have more time together. We need to make sure that we're traveling the world and doing these things because he's so immersed into being a business owner, and he always has been, and I appreciate him for that. But that's like an open dialogue that like I've been starting to have more of that with him. Okay, well, what about the future? Our kids are going to be grown one day, and it's just going to be us. And what are the things that we want to do with the boys? And I feel like COVID also put a wrench in that for us as they were starting to get to that age where we could start doing more with them. So yeah, that's definitely a work in progress on my end here with my household. But personally, we do have time to do a lot of the things that we want to do, being able to get our kids. And if we have to go on a fly somewhere, we're able to do that. But I want to get deeper with that with my family, like you were mentioning, Christina, and being able to travel more and do more exciting things with them. But he definitely, it's hard to pin him down to say, okay, we're going to do this and go out of town and do that. So
yeah.
And it's interesting.
and I get that. And here's the interesting thing, like the why comes in all different shapes and sizes.
Yes.
Right? And he's obviously supporting in a very big way his family and your dreams, right? That's important. We haven't even talked about that as far as a little bit, but you have to be in alignment with the people that are actually like your partners in life. Meaning that there has to be this drive. Maybe some of the in-between's different, right? Maybe I like some, maybe I like fast cars and I know for a fact Kelly does not, right? So there might be like some things in between, but in the end, like the why, the big why, it has to be really, focused together in that journey.
Family, Robert. And
yeah, but I'll mention just briefly, so there's a kind of this relatability that was me in the beginning, like meaning that my why at a very young age, it was just to become successful, and success meant money to me, right? And again, we talk about those things change and evolve over time. So I had brick and mortar businesses, right? I started franchises from the ground up. I had a manufacturing company with a partner, and we grew that to multiple, millions of dollars at the time. But at a very young age, when I quite honestly, I was too immature to actually understand the magnitude of what I actually had at my fingertips and the impact that I could have had on so many other people. But things happen in life. And I kind of want to step back to that. If you guys would like to talk a little bit about at what point in your life did things like really, really change? Meaning when that why started to matter in a bigger way. And for me, most of you know that I lost a child at 2.5 years old many years ago, and she was an angel. I'll save this for some other testimonies. But she changed my life because it really allowed me, once I kind of went through that journey of pain and discovery and loss, I started to realize like how short and fragile life like truly is. And I didn't want my children to, especially, with even young ones that I have now, like to experience, that gap in time where all I did was work so hard, because in the end, I said I did it for my family, right? I was working so hard. I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, literally, so that I could be successful, which then meant they could have more. But you had to find that time in between. So anyways, that was a big impact for me. That really changed everything. And as you said, Christina, spending time, you guys see me on vacation, 3-4 times a year. We really like to spend that time together, because tomorrow isn't promised. Next year is not promised.
Yeah, I had a very similar situation with my daughter when she was born. And she, that you have this moment that everybody dreams of when you have this baby, that this baby is put on your chest, and you like have this moment with your child, and she was purple and she didn't breathe. And so my daughter didn't breathe for her first 5.5 minutes of being born, and we weren't sure that she was going to make it. And that moment changed me forever, because I was like, I get emotional about it. And I got emotional when you said you lost your child at 2.5. Like, there's things in your life that money can't buy. And I just thought, man, if this is how precious life is, like, God, it's a miracle. Our kids are a miracle, right? I was willing to change everything for her. I stopped working the way that I did. I started seeing things a little bit differently. That's why I got into online marketing, because I was like, I can leverage my time. I could be at home with her. I can do everything for her. And it's hard, because as entrepreneurs, we are control freaks, right? Like, we have these moments that we're like, nope, this is my business. I'm in control. Nobody can do it better than me. Obviously, nobody can. I actually had this conversation with a client this week, because he's like, he runs this extremely successful business, but hasn't scaled it, because he's like, nobody can do it better than me. And I can't let go of control. And I said, look, what do you want the long-term game to be? Like, do you have a retirement plan? Do you have a vacation plan? Do you have like the good parts of life that you get to like envision and look forward to? And sometimes, because we're so busy, we get stuck in the present moment, and we forget to have a vision of like what the future looks like and what we want. Like you said, you want to travel the world with your family, and you want those memories. And when you're on your deathbed, you want your kids to be there being like, thank you for the experience that you gave me on this planet. I love you. And a lot of parents don't get that, right? Like, a lot of parents don't have that, because they were so busy working, providing for their family. They had the same intentions, but their lives were different. And so you really have to make some difficult choices sometimes. And it doesn't always look the same for everybody, right? We all, like you were saying, Star, like these conversations with your husband are just starting to arise. And it's hard to let go of business. It's hard for him to say, nope, somebody else can watch it for a week. Like, that gives us anxiety. Like, just so you know, like, that's like, oh my God, like I'm going to let somebody else take my baby in their hands and walk away with it. Right. Like, so it's one of those things that when you're shaken to your core about something, or something happens to you in life, like, that will change you, and it'll change your perspective of life and what to really value.
So true.
Definitely. And I think, we suffered a loss 2 years ago this past June. As you guys know, my stepson passed away. So we have a lot of grief in my household right now, every day. And honestly, I think a lot of it is like immersing yourself into business to kind of keep your mind like occupied. We're still kind of in that chapter of our lives. I feel like right now, even though, at first I definitely took months off from coaching. And I still had a brick and mortar. So obviously there was some work that I had to do there, but it was like as limited as possible. But then after that, it's like staying busy just to kind of keep the brain occupied is kind of what's happening, I feel like, right now for us.
Yeah, that's so true. And that, there's different stages. There's different stages. I won't belabor the topic, but I'll just say that I've learned a lot about just loss in general. And 6 years later, like 6 years after my daughter's death, was when I actually cried the most. Like, it was the craziest thing. It hit me. It was almost it was embedded there. It was kind of waiting. Same thing, Star, like you said, it's just, we keep busy. We do other things. I had other children, so I focused on them, right? And it's just like, you kind of dismiss some of those things, but it's okay. I mean, first and foremost, you kind of acknowledge it. And the fact that you've acknowledged it and that it's there and that it's real, let it empower you to do some amazing things for others and to be a comfort for those that are actually experiencing the same loss now.
I think this is like a perfect like conversation for why, right? Because often it's our hardest challenges that drive us the most. It's the things that we've overcome that we help other people overcome that make it easier for them, And if you're struggling, some people, okay, I don't know why I do what I do, or I don't really understand that. One of the exercises that I got out of Millionaire Success Habits by Dean Graziosi was the 7 degrees of why. Did you ever do that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
like, right, okay, what is my why? And so you journal on that. And then, okay, but why? Why that? Right? And then you think about it in journal. And so often when you finally get to the 7th degree of why you do something, your very baseline, it's something as deep rooted in you as safety, as freedom, as control, as, all these things that like innately when you were young that were pressed upon you. And so there's a reason that we are the way that we are. There's a reason that we fight for freedom. There's a reason that we fight for control. There's a reason that we fight to make an impact and feel significant. And our significance comes from service to others. Like it's not because we love showing up and being an influencer online or because we're a big deal speaking on stage or being on a podcast. It's because our significance comes from service and helping other people create the same kind of lifestyle that we have, because we know that we have the gift of coaching and mentorship and leadership and influence. And so we don't take that lightly. It's something that, I really guard and values, because I know that long term, there's nothing more fulfilling than that when you serve others and the money comes.
That is so true. And actually, we thrive in this space, of course, because again, that competitive spirit kind of comes in. But by no means, I mean, when people think, a lot of times people look at business owners or people that are thriving or pushing towards success as being money hungry, kind of evil, stingy people. And I have found that living in this space, it's absolutely the opposite of what you find. We're the first ones to step up and actually help someone in need, right? Yeah. And by all means, and many times it's when we ourselves need help, right? But that's a whole nother thing. But you're right. Like at the end of the day, it is in service of others. It isn't to put ourselves on a pedestal. This podcast, social media in general, is just a tool that we use to kind of broadcast our voice in our mission in a very big way to a huge audience. I mean, that's all it's really for. But at the end of the day, it is in service of others. I do want to talk, just because we've got about, roughly, 12, 15 minutes left. I want to talk a lot about the money side, because what happens, we could talk about this all day long, but we see it online all the time, especially with other people that are in our space. What happens when you just chase money? Do you have any experiences in your life about any of the obstacles that you faced or the trials because of just being hungry for money?
Yeah, I feel like as far as obstacles, I feel like I've been judged a lot from either being successful or bringing in a certain amount of income. And like you mentioned, we're here to help others, and yet you might be judged by other people, right? So I know a lot of entrepreneurs struggle maybe in the coaching space to talk about how much they make or how much they made, because they feel like people may judge them. When I dealt with employees, a lot of them felt that I was fake, and I really wasn't. Like, I'm a very nice, sincere person, but they automatically felt that way. So for me, that's kind of been the challenge. Is like, okay, I work very, very hard to be successful. I work very, very hard to earn an income. And a lot of the times we have developed that time freedom that we now have over like putting in that hard work that we talked about, and people don't get to see that, or maybe they met us later on in life when we put in those hard times and those hard hours, and we're still working on it, right? It's a progress. But yeah, I feel like that judgment piece is is one of the difficult things that I faced.
Oh, that's true. Christina, you got anything in regards to judgment, just talking about that alone?
I judge myself.
We are our own worst critics, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that's what makes people great. Like people that are constantly questioning, constantly trying to get better. Or like, have you ever had a conversation with somebody that went awry and then you're like, okay, how could I have been better in that conversation? Like you're not blaming the other person. You're like, but how could I have handled that better? What could I have said? You know, so we're constantly reflecting. And you asked about money. And you know, when you were chasing the dollar, and I see this a lot of times in entrepreneurship, you see it a ton in the MLM network marketing industry, right? The newest, bettest thing, the brightest thing, ground floor opportunity. This is amazing, right? Like, so you see all these things and people jumping around to chase that dollar, to chase the next fad. And if you don't have that strong root in why, when you initially said that, what I thought was, I remember in my youth when I when I started as a server, but then got into bartending. And so the money was so good. Like you couldn't make $400 in 2 hours anywhere else. You know, like there was no social media influencer stuff. There was no like, I didn't know about anything else. So I was like, this is the fastest way to make money. But I also didn't feel very good about myself. Like I'm just like, okay, yeah, like this is great money, but I also have to show up in a corset and like booty shorts every weekend. And like, this is my job now. Right. And so like, you can really only do that for so long. And by the way, shake it and make it, right? Like do what you got to do. You can like have it. Like
we're not belittling that for those that make a living doing that. Yeah. So,
well, like, and it's great. Like, and it helped me get ahead and it helped me learn. Right. And it definitely gave me people skills and that kind of stuff. But I remember thinking, I don't want to do this forever. I want to do something different that is more impactful. I want to help people. And then I got into hair and I was like, okay, well, I love this, but I also feel like I should be able to, impress more belief and confidence into people than just giving them a great haircut. And so it starts to evolve that like, it's not just the money that you're making to pay your bills. And that really was how I was raised. Get a good job that was stable enough, that'll give you a pension and healthcare, that'll pay your bills. I never dreamed of big income. I never dreamed of those things, but I always had this little feeling inside me. And it was, you're meant for more. You're meant to do more. And I've learned over the years now that that's the voice of the Holy Spirit. Like I've learned over the years that was like God calling me to step up, step up, step up. Yeah. And I didn't, it was whether that was intuition or like, why do I feel different than everybody else? I don't know. And like, it was really interesting to me that as I grew and evolved, that the money piece, although important, like as long as I have money in the bank account, like I'm good. But it really came down to fulfillment. And if you know what you're here to do, you will continue to take the steps to move forward to help people at your highest level, because that's what'll bring you joy. And that's what, when you see other people's lives change because you've helped them do that, man, that's so priceless.
It is absolutely that is fuel, right? In itself. And that is true fulfillment, just being in line with your purpose and how you can serve others. That's a big thing. That's actually what we do, right? When I think of chasing money, by the way, I'm going to kind of bring this right down to a very basic topic of what I'm seeing both in clients that are onboarding with me and just individuals out there that just talk on social media. And that is the fact that, we chase, number one, it's an illusion in many cases. It takes a lot of hard work. Every single commercial you see on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, anything that you see, it may be a great piece of software, a great piece of advice, great training material, content, whatever it may be. I'm not dismissing the value of whatever it is that's being pitched to you. However, if anything tells you that it's instant gratification and that you can actually obtain money in a very, very quick way, I would run. I would run. And my experience tells me that in every single fashion. And you're seeing this like more and more because people know, right, that they can prey on those that just want more. They want a bigger house. They want, faster cars. They want whatever it is, bigger diamonds, whatever it may be. Like they know that actually kind of compels and intrigues people and it draws them in. But most people aren't mentally prepared. That's why we're talking about how to establish your why. They're not ready to even understand, number one, who they are, right? You have to understand who you are. Mindset, heart set, full alignment, everything else, what your purpose is, what it is that your passion, right? Your God-given talents, like what's the alignment there? And then to whom you want to serve, like what community and what target audience and who it is that you want to have a very large impact with. And so all those things take time. They take a lot of time. And so when people try to, throw you into this get rich quick type scheme, it requires what I just mentioned way before you plug in any tools and products. Would you agree?
Well, that's the hard part too, is because you see all these people that are desperate right now. Like, we
Yes.
are in a space where people need money, want money, and are willing to do anything for it. Okay. And so, like, I was going through TikTok the other day, and this woman's like, "Oh, I made $461,000 last month. Here's 5 steps to do that." And I was like, ah. And, like, by the way, that video was sent to me by a potential client. She's like, "This is what I want to do." And I'm just like,
No.
so here's where we need to start, because as wonderful as this is, you understand, first of all, that this woman has 160,000 followers on TikTok. Do you have 100,000 followers on TikTok that I don't know about? Do you have 100,000 people on an email list that I don't know about? Do you have 20,000 people in a Facebook group that I don't know about? Like, where are we starting here, right? It's not just 5 steps. And I said, this woman is telling you what she's done, but she's also spent money on her funnel. She's spent money on her program. She spent money developing all these things. It's probably taken her 5, 6, 7 years to get to where she is right now. And this is false advertising. And it's really difficult because people believe it, because they need something to believe in right now. And that's really the hard part right now, is discernment and figuring out, okay, what is actually valid out there. I always ask for a referral. I always ask for references. I always, try and get in front of those people and have a conversation with them to see exactly what they're doing and see if it's in alignment. But it really is a space where, hey, look, like, there are no shortcuts. Like, we don't get to skip the line here. You do have to build it step by step. And that why, that purpose that you have, that will be the anchor that will get you through the hard times, right? Like, I think, okay, if we go through a hard time in Mexico, now what? Like, we have to make more money. Right? We have to make more money. There's no, like, we're not crawling our way home and living in our parents' basement. Like, that's not happening. So we've got to evolve into the next step of life. But so often there's this false flag out there, or this distraction, or the devil, if you want to call it, right, is out there tempting you to go down this path that makes it look easy. And we're here to tell you that the struggle is real, and that it's not bad, it's good, but you have to persevere. And there has to be some dedication and discipline in the process. And that purpose is what anchors you to those things, so that you continue to get up in the morning and do what you do, and not fall for whatever false flag is being shown to you today.
Absolutely. And so, again, it's like the desperate measures, right? Like, don't rush the process. That's what I tell everyone. I mean, it's okay to go buy a course to kind of create some fulfillment. It's okay to buy a book to gain more knowledge, or whatever it may be. But I can tell you for a fact that don't expect, to even with coaching. I mean, we're all coaches, right? Don't expect to hire a coach for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or to join their boot camp or whatever it may be. And it'll move the needle, but it actually won't get you to your ultimate goal, right? To fulfill your why. And so it's these baby steps, but enjoy, immerse yourself, understand that you don't have to rush. If you have this mentality that I have to have it now, it is going to make you desperate. And when you're desperate, that's what people prey on. Like, that's when you go online and you see this, let's get rich overnight. Let's buy my course today, learn about real estate, flip a house, make millions of dollars overnight. Like, whatever it may be, they prey on that because they know you're desperate, that you want it now. We live in the society that we want to go from $30,000 a year in income to $1 million overnight. And that takes so much time, as each of us know. You have to scale, you have to build, you have to tweak, you have to pivot. I mean, there's so many things that you have to learn along the way.
You have to become a different person. What are you talking about? You have to become a completely different person. From 30,000 to 100,000 to 500,000 to $1 million to multiple millions. You have to become the person required to make that kind of money. That's the end game.
So true. I always say, there's a few people out there that are currently selling a product. Someone that actually, I won't even get into it, but someone I used to do some business with, they just sell this $5,000 product, right? And they're bringing people in off the streets that are basically making minimum wage and trying to get them to sell this $5,000 product. And I'm always like, if you're getting into this space, like, let's scale. Let's sell a $19.99. Let's sell a $20 ebook based on your skill set before we try to sell something that's $5,000. Like, let's do that. If you can sell something for $20, then we can start scaling, right? then now we can do $100. Now we can do, $500. And then those things become a little more attainable. But number one, again, you're still trying to figure out who you are and all the other things in between. How long has it taken each one of you to learn just, how to market yourself online, let alone that continues to change each and every day based on the algorithm and all the things, right? So it's actually, that's a never ending process in itself there.
Yeah, I love that topic. When I talked about like the judgment piece, the reason I brought that up and I mentioned that was because they have no clue of the before, right?
Yeah.
And it's not simple like you guys are saying. I had a woman who was like, we were talking about e-commerce, and she was like, "Yeah, I want to make, we were talking about like making 10 grand per month selling products." She was like, "Well, I want to be at $100,000 per month," and I'm just like, how about you start at like the 10 or even like 1,000 a month?
Let's scale this. Let's scale this. Exactly. Yep.
And then exactly what Robert said, being able to scale it. But when I have conversations with people who are getting ready to get into my program, I tell them like, this is not easy. Like what I teach is not for people who just want to like a quick get rich quick scheme. You might be buying into other coaches because they're like, "Oh, I'm making all this money and I'm doing this." And I'm like, no, there's a lot of work here. You're developing a brand. Literally, most of you guys are building an audience from zero because you just have your family and friends mostly in your audience. You might be building a new niche, so you need a completely new audience. What's your offer? You know how to sell. I mean, that's not an overnight skill set. Like, I think we have to have like 10,000 hours under our belt to like master something.
To master anything. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that takes time. I mean, quite honestly, just based on the judgment piece, I'm sorry. I didn't want to lose that thought. There's this illusion where if you are working a job, we tend to always look at, and I'm not saying there aren't bad bosses or owners that take advantage of people. There are, right? But we tend to look to those people and we're like, they've got it made. You don't understand the struggles that I'm going through, right? And so that's the same thing that we have faced. The fact that we've been judged because we want more in life, and that we've even achieved certain things in life, milestones in life. But it's taken a ton of hard work, and they also don't understand the outlay of that. I mean, quite honestly, when I first made, because I didn't even think that was possible in life when I was younger, but when I first made $250,000, people were like, "You are balling, right? You're rich. You have no worries, nothing to worry about." And I was like, "Yeah, but I spend 60% of this to just maintain."
Oh, nobody says that out loud.
Right. I know, but like people don't understand that, right? And so even those that we idle and we look to here in whatever career field with coaching or whatever it may be, these mentors, some of them make millions of dollars, but they also spend, $500,000, if not more. I mean, I know one guy that makes $3 million a year. He spends $1 million a year in marketing, right? That does not come cheap, and it doesn't come without some type of pain along the way, because I guarantee that person's also working their butt off way more than anyone else behind the scenes.
And they've also made expensive mistakes, right? We've all made expensive mistakes.
Yes.
And if you don't have the courage to make those expensive mistakes and realize, and have the confidence to realize you can go make them up, you can go make them more money, you can go fix it, right? Then you never take those risks. And it really is the whole risk equals reward thing, right? So and I remember talking to this person about, okay, well, you want to go make the $400,000 a month in affiliate marketing. Okay, but like you're also in competition with those making $1 million a month on Facebook who are spending $500,000 a month on ads. And so do you have resources for that? Because that's the other thing that I love about network marketing. I'm going to say this right now, is that if you do not come from money, if you cannot get a loan, network marketing is probably the fastest way to figure out how to make money, how to lead, how to build business, right? It's the fastest way to be able to scale that. And a lot of us use that piece to then like use as a launching pad to what we're going to do next, because we can help a certain level of people here. And then we're like, okay, wait a second. Now I want to help higher end people here in leadership. I want to help, and so we just kind of, as we develop, right, as we grow, like I was talking about at the very beginning, if you are feeling unfulfilled in where you are, it's because you've grown and you're not acting as if you've grown. You're staying where you're at.
Right.
Yes. And so do everything in all. I'm not saying do one or the other, but do everything in all and bring people with you. It's not a matter of saving people, right? It's not a matter of having the savior complex and going out and saving people. It's a matter of saving yourself and of teaching people how you did it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. When you talk about network marketing, I do want to just kind of make a note for those that are watching or thinking about that. I always tell everyone, just going into it with the mindset, though, of learning all the things that you just stated and not following those that tell you that they'll be rich overnight, right? Without hard work or whatever it may be. I mean, it takes anything that you want to do that's going to create success, that's going to drive you towards those big whys in life. It takes work. And it's whether that comes in the form of money, right, investing, or sweat equity, whatever it may be, you're going to sacrifice something in order to gain in other areas. And so, but I'm glad you brought that point up. Absolutely, it's a great stepping stone. Star, anything that you want to kind of wrap up with, just based on this topic?
Yeah, just keep plugging away at your why, and it's okay if you're still developing that. I think all of us feel like we have to know exactly what our why is. Just being okay with that fact that for some of you might be working on that and it may also be changing. Accept that and just keep working and plugging away at your business. It's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else, Christina? Any last moments?
We've been taught to have this vision of our lives and what we're going for. Like, I want this at the end of my life. And the biggest thing that I've learned as an entrepreneur is that you're going to have different chapters, you're going to have different seasons, and it really is just about what's the next right step for you. What's the next right step for you and your family? What's the next thing that is in alignment with what you want? And then chase that. Because if you continue to chase the thing that keeps you excited, the thing that keeps you motivated, then you never get to that place of, maybe I just don't want to do this anymore.
Oh, that is so true. And as I stated even before, I think in an earlier post and things that we've been talking about, like your why has to be big enough to literally make you cry. I think on today's, on today's show, all three of us had a little tear in our eyes, right? And it was like legitimate and it's authentic that it's reaching those moments in life where it's bigger than just saying, I want more money, a bigger bank account. I want more time with my family. When you say those things, there's still intent there. And those things that aren't bad, but they don't bring tears to your eyes, I guess, unless having, a bank account filled with millions of dollars, that might bring, I guess, tears to a few of our eyes. But anyways, but we're really just having that intention, like peel back the layers even deeper. And so that's like the last thing. I would just challenge you to sit there and really spend time, like to be present in those thoughts and to go, you know what? Yeah, to have more time with my family, it would allow me to do X, Y, Z. It would bring us to a place where potentially I would have maybe a better relationship with my kids than maybe I experienced as a kid growing up. Or, I want to be that mentor, or to basically have a legacy that my children and my family are able to carry forward when I'm no longer here on this earth. Like whatever those things are, bring it down to a deeper level that actually really brings you to your knees. And as you said, Christina and Star, because if you live in that moment and you understand your purpose and what your why is, at the end of the day, when you're stuck in a rut, because you will be, I'm telling you now, when you're actually sitting there and you don't want to wake up and work on your business, whatever it is in life, whatever challenge you face, like that why will eventually get you back up and you're back in the game and you're fighting through it.
Yep. Nailed it, Robert.
I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Again, Tina, feel better. You're only about an hour and a half, I guess, south of me. So if you're not better in the next couple of days, I'm coming down there. I'm gonna hunt you down, and we're gonna do something here. We're gonna have to drag you out on a beach or something. I don't know. But everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you all for tuning in, and even for those that are checking the replay, feel free to comment. We have people coming in from all different channels, and they're leaving comments. We're always looking for any wisdom, knowledge, even other topics that you would like us to discuss. So please connect with us and continue to support. Thank you. Have a nice day.